but this is a Pokemon, and this is about the character Cyrus, and he's the leader of Team Galactic. So I haven't actually played this game, but I stumbled across this character because of some things that he says, and and it's just a theme that I've seen over and over again, and that's why we're talking about it here. And his name isn't Saturn. That guy over there saluting behind him is Saturn. His team is Team Galactic. So all of his little what do you call it? Underlings are named after planets like Galaxy, but yeah, I think there's two girls like Venus and Mars or something like that, and but his main right-hand man is Saturn, which is probably worth noting. Anyways, we're going to read about Cyrus's goals. I'm trying to make this video short, honestly. Cyrus was the leader of the main antagonistic organization in Sinnoh, Team Galactic, who wishes to recreate the Red Chain and use its powers to control two legendary Pokemon, Dialga and Palkia, and in Platinum, I'm probably butchering those names. Again, I haven't seen this stuff. This done, he wished to simply destroy the current world and reshape it the way it should be, with himself taking up the role of a god. So again, that's a very, very common mantra or attitude, even if they don't outright say it sometimes, but sometimes they'll directly say it, of a villain, them comparing themselves or thinking of themselves as a god. And I could explain to you, like I've done a million times already, what that means psychologically to think of yourself as a god. You kind of don't hold yourself accountable to anything above you. You're kind of the rule maker. You're not subordinate to rules higher than yourself. Sort of like he wished to simply destroy the current world and reshape it the way it should be. Well, the way it should be is probably, his idea of how the world should be. But we're going to read a little bit about that. In his speech, Cyrus says that they are on the verge of creating a new world with no incompleteness and strife. When the player meets Cyrus in Team Galactic's headquarters, he tells him that his speech was a lie, but he says that he's still intended on creating a new world, but a world that is only for him, not Team Galactic. Oh, that's very interesting, because when we talk about basically giving the devil his due and like the villain's vision for peace and things like that, a lot of the times it's hard to believe that it's really good intentions underneath the crazy, violent, destructive, deceptive actions, because look how they're acting. It seems almost like, oh, do you really want to save the world and help people out? Because look how you're acting. And they would say the ends justify the means, but he himself, he tells him that the speech was a lie, but he says he intended on creating a new world, but only for himself, not for Team Galactic, not for everybody, not even his own team, let alone for everybody. At the spear pillar, Cyrus uses the red chains to control Dialga and Palkia, saying that he now has the power to create the perfect world with no spirit. Okay, that's a key thing to remember. No spirit. And just an FYI, these legendary Pokemon, Dialga and Palkia, that's time and space. Every legendary Pokemon, and then the other one it was talking about was the Underworld god. So he wants to I think he ends up being trapped in the Underworld, like Pokemon Hell, basically, and I think that's actually what he wanted, but he ends up, he's trying to use the Pokemon gods of time and space, which is pretty weird to me. The Lake Trio arrives, but Cyrus is not worried at all and finds it to be in vain, saying that their powers cannot balance both Dialga and Palkia and stop them. A black hole then appears with Giratina, which is the basically Pokemon Devil, shadow appearing out of it. Cyrus sees this new interruption to be effortless since he has control of Dialga and Palkia. Before he can say anything, Giratina's shadow grabs Cyrus and drags him to the distortion world. Okay, so he does end up getting trapped in hell or whatever. Cyrus remains behind in the distortion world, vowing to create a world without spirit. There that is again. He was known to be a good, albeit asocial student, and so preferred the company of machines over humans and Pokemon. Despite being such a good student, however, he did not live up to his parents' expectations, and so felt rejected. And I highlighted that at some point. Again, this is old stuff. I didn't just find this stuff. This is all stuff I documented a long time ago, so it's not all fresh in my mind. But I feel like why I would have highlighted he did not live up to his parents' expectations, and so felt rejected, is kind of a Cain thing, like from the Bible. Cain is basically told by God that, your sacrifices are inadequate. Cain becomes resentful at reality itself and kills his brother. And so it's kind of like not living up to your dad's. It's kind of like not living up to your own ideal, basically, and getting resentful about it. And angry. Sometime after this, he decided emotions were the source of all strife in the world, and that only the elimination of emotions, along with spirit, was the only cure to the fighting in the world. His grandfather regretted for not helping him in his time of need. Okay. So again, you see a origin of pain to the villain's motives. That's something you'll see pretty often, and I've talked about that a million times. And it's, sure, it's a writing trope to make you, what's it called? The villain pets the dog or something like that. That's the name of the trope in a way, or that's one of the names for a trope like this, and it's supposed to humanize them and make them seem more sympathetic. But it's also symbolic beyond just like a writing tactic to make your character seem more human. It's literally true, because the source of someone thinking and feeling and acting this way would be its origin point would be one of pain and like despair, because he wants to destroy the world and create one without spirit. He wants to erase this place because it's too difficult, it's painful, it sucks, it's irredeemable, things like that. Even, like I've said before, even in some famous paintings of Lucifer, he's got a tear in his eye, and in Dante's Inferno, the Divine Comedy, in the Dante's Inferno part, Satan has Judas frozen in his tears, like Satan's crying, and Judas is in his tears, frozen in Satan's tears. But the point I'm trying to make is Lucifer and Satan in art are sometimes depicted as crying, and to me this whole pain thing is exactly why that is. Anyways, doesn't justify it. You can say, I've already talked about this, but just because someone does something bad because they were sad doesn't mean they didn't do something bad. One of Cyrus's most defining characteristics in the games, at least, is his apparent lack of emotion. In the anime and manga, this trait seems to be absent. Okay, well, there you go again with the whole pain thing. People, it's kind of cornball, but like, you get hurt and then you become numb to you can become closed off, your heart becomes closed off to being receptive to relating to other people because of what happened last time. It was too painful, so you kind of shut yourself off. Your heart becomes stone, right? And even in the anime Rurouni Kenshin, the main villain, his name's Makoto Shishio, and the first episode he appears in is called The Man with No Emotion. So that's obviously again, that's an attribute. We're studying archetypes, like videos like this where I'm just talking about dumb little Pokemon characters. We're studying villain archetypes in each video and looking for what's consistent across each character analysis, and then we're kind of piecing together what that says about us and what that says about good guys and bad guys and good and evil in general. And sure, like I said, you could write it off as writing tropes, but it goes beyond that. It's storytelling has a lot to do with our own minds and hearts, and they were written by people who thought and felt and observed the world and wrote a certain thing. Like I said, the oldest writing tropes ever are probably God and Devil. And those stories aren't meaningless just because they're old and have appeared so many times. They still matter. And they might be more than just stories, so keep that in mind too. In the anime clips he's talking about, he uses phrases like, I'm creating a new world order, things like that. And you know, that ties right into the world's incompleteness. It's incomplete. You know, the New World Order wants to make the world whole, right? It wants to make it one world. And I'm posting a video at the same time of this about Legion and unity and things like that. And it's funny, it ties right into this because again, we're studying villain archetypes, so of course it would. It always ends up overlapping with each other. So right here, vowing to create a world without spirit, right? Okay, that's a key thing to remember because right here, we're looking at the pentacle, the 5-pointed star. I don't know. I'm not too into this stuff or whatever, but just you got the 5 elements and then the 5th one being spirit. So you got air, which is usually thought, like mind. Water, which is usually emotions. Fire, which is usually actions. Earth, which is usually body, like your physical body. And spirit kind of being like, you know, this one's a little bit harder to describe. It's like you could think of it as your soul, but it's also like, and it kind of overlaps with emotions a little bit, but it's like your soul, and I mean actually all these kind of overlap with they all play into each other. They're all important to think about holistically, but spirit is almost like hope and like potential and like creativity, and it's also kind of emotions too. It's like good character. That's how I think about it, because think about it. He wants to create a world with no spirit. Okay, no spirit. Well, think about what an inverted pentagram does. They take the spirit at the top point and put it down and drive it down into the ground. You know, I gave this example. This is a very basic example of how I can understand it in a very down-to-earth way, right? Getting rid of spirit, cutting off spirit, thinking of that as cutting off belief or hope in possibility that things couldn't be different than the way that they are. And that sounds like retarded, like why would you ever even do that? But there is a utility in thinking in that way to a certain extent if we're going to give the devil his due or whatever. But I gave the example of, I was watching a show, this guy tells this woman who's a heroin addict, he's saying, you know, I can really imagine life for you, happy and free from this drug addiction, and it's actually truly possible for you. He's telling her that, and the way she's looking at him, she's shaking her head, no, like she can't even conceive of a possibility of a scenario where her life, she feels like she's too far gone. She can't be redeemed. There's no, and the problem with that is because if you can't even, that's like the first step. If you can't even see that as a possibility for yourself, then you'll never take steps to like actually get there. You know, that's why people say you gotta have faith. You gotta believe in your. I don't even want to use that phrase. Gotta believe in yourself, but you just gotta believe in the possibility that things can be better. You gotta believe, and again, that you can expand that worldview into like you gotta be able to believe that humanity can get its act together, that it can change it, so you don't have to, you know, create a world without spirit and, you know, create a new world order and things like that. You have to believe humanity is actually good and it can turn itself around, things like that. But right, and I talked about the utility of like why would the bad guy want to get rid of spirit? Think about it like this. I've said this before in other videos. I don't remember which one, but why would you want to get rid of hope? Bane in the Dark Knight series, he's telling Batman about that prison that they're in, and the light at the top of the prison, he's saying that light at the top represented a possibility for the prisoners actually escaping if they could muster up the strength of will and physical ability to actually climb out. And that light at the top represented the possibility that they could get out. It gave them a hope, but nobody ever did get out. And that hope, the existence of that hope actually made their torment and their suffering much greater. And that was his point. And he was saying he's going to do the same thing to Gotham and feed its people hope while he, you know, give them a false hope. It's kind of like if, in a very dumb example, it's kind of like if like your friends called you and made plans with you. You have an expectation or a hope that you're going to meet up and hang out with them, and then they cancel on you or flake on you or whatever. And then you say to yourself, "Oh man, I wish they just never hit me up in the first place." Right? It's the same. To me, it's the same thing. It's a very dumb example, but to me, the principle of it is the same. So why would you do the no hope thing? It's, well, why would you say, "I wish they never hit me up in the first place"? So you never had to feel that letdown, right? And that's kind of why Cyrus has cut off his emotions, lack of emotions, felt rejected, Sometime after this, he decided emotions were the source of all strife in the world. Hope that makes sense, guys. That's pretty much all I have to say about this. We'll read this little. This is from the video game. I don't know what this. I think it's maybe Pearl, Pokemon Pearl and Diamond. I think this is probably just gonna recap exactly what I just read to you, but we'll go through it. My name, as I appear to you today, is Cyrus. This world of ours is a crude one. In a word, it is incomplete. So this text is very blurry. It has been and always will be a struggle to survive in this world. We humans and Pokemon are likewise incomplete. Because we are all so lacking, we fight. We fight, we maim. It is ugly. I hate the incompleteness. That we are all incomplete, I hate it with my entire body and being. The world should be complete. The world must change. Then, who will change it? Me, Cyrus, and Team Galactic, yes, all of you. Together we poured over myths and exposed their secrets. That's interesting. I don't even remember that. Kind of what I'm into doing. Sure, Pokemon isn't a myth, but I also delve into religious stories, which are kind of like myths, and old mythology from different past civilizations, and trying to figure out, again, what they're... And it goes beyond just metaphor, guys. It probably gets much weirder than that, but looking at them purely in philosophical or psychological terms is extremely profound and interesting. And to me, if anyone... I'm not trying to, like, pick a team here, but if any, like, kind of, like, for example, an atheist or something like that writes them off as pure superstitious stupidity, they're being disingenuous, and they're actually doing you a disservice. They're being cringy, man. Like, there's a lot of stuff to learn from that, even if you don't believe in, like, a literal god and devil and things like that. Like, I'm telling you, you're missing out. You're being foolish, in my opinion. Together we captured legendary Pokemon, and now... And by the way, the point I was trying to make about studying games and movies and stuff, it's like they're like modern-day myths. They're like modern-day stories. Superheroes are like saviors and messiahs and things like that, and people dress up like them and get tattoos of them. They have a cultural impact, okay? That's the point I'm trying to make. And now Team Galactic has obtained the energy to change the world. The power of dreams is within our grasp. Understand it, fellow members. My long-held dream world is on the verge of becoming a reality. So, I did a video probably a year ago called Villains Being Obsessed with to Create a Dream World. If you want more insight on that, it's just, of course he says that. It's just, of course. Like, I'm telling you, it goes beyond writing tropes. There's a reason the heroes are saying the same stuff. There's a reason the villains are saying the same stuff. And it's because, yeah, there's a reason. Beyond just like, oh, that's what that's what all the other writers do, so I guess I'll do it too. It's because it's speaking about something very old and something very true and something about us as people. Again, there wasn't any sort of new information to that speech, but again, you know, the world's incomplete. We need to make it whole. We need to unify everything. In the cartoon itself, he literally says he has a cube. I think that's even the cube behind him. If you actually, the G before, maybe it was just, I don't know. But in the show at least, I don't know if it's in the game, when he says we obtained the power to change the world and stuff, in the show he has some like puzzle box thing that unfolds, and when it folds up it's a golden cube, which I've talked about many times, and he says he literally says the term New World Order. We're going to create a New World Order, which is just, it's weird. Anyways, hope some of this makes sense, guys. Thank you for watching. That's all that there is for this video.